Welcome to Web of Light, where we are weaving a web of light throughout the universe, throughout our universe, throughout your universe, and throughout the Hudson, Nashua, Pelham, Derry, Londonderry, Greater Universe, whatever. And I'm Dr. Kevin, and this is
Angie d'Anjou.
oh, none other than Angie d'Anjou.
So sweet.
What can I say? We want to welcome you here to the Web of Light show. As always, we're going to start with our words of wisdom. Then Angie and I will kick those words of wisdom around. And then we will bring on today's very special guest. Da-da-da-dum. Today's words of wisdom are going to be kicked off by a poem that I wrote called Hidden. You ask, why do I not stay just hidden? It is okay to be me as long as I do not tell you about it. You are sure I am all right in some perverse way. So if I just don't tell you, then you can like me in your ignorance. Speak not of the things you know not, except through the front pages of the supermarket counter magazine. And you are too Christian to want to see me bleed. You gave up that sport hundreds of years ago. But you also do not want to hear about my pain. And do not let you know that I can be human and be one of them, for they are animals, and you know me. For I am your friend that held you when you were in pain, when all others turned their back, uncomfortable with your grief. Perhaps I am your brother or sister, the aunt or uncle to your children, someone you used to fight with, dream with. Maybe you even took baths with me. I might be a favorite cousin or a treasured school teacher, the person who at some point has changed your life in a positive way. I am your father or mother, I am your child and your friend, and it is okay as long as I am hidden, as long as I perpetuate your fairy tales, discreetly avoid certain conversations, or better yet, even lie. It makes you feel better. It's okay as long as I am hidden, shoved away in dark corners, left in dark alleys, and am not the one that got beaten to death while walking home. It's okay as long as you don't see or hear my pain, and you can hide in your ignorance, telling yourself your lies, asking me to confirm them. Yes, it is better for you. For if you come out of hiding, you might have to grow. Growth is painful, and my pain that is mine is easy for you, easier than to risk the pain you might feel if you grow. For in growth, you might realize that you are not God's only child. And sometimes those people in black robes that spew hate in the name of God might have lied to you. And if they lied to you about that, what else did they lie to you about? Perhaps they do not know the way to heaven. What if you could not just sit back in stagnation and go to heaven? Maybe you might have to go through the pain of becoming human. No, it is better if it is hidden. Do not work too hard to become human. Do not upset all you've been told. Of course, they are right. But as you drift off to sleep tonight, if you question them, keep it hidden. Do not show your doubts. Feel no pain for anyone but yourself. Fall asleep dreaming of how you will get your wings, not if. I chose those words of wisdom today. I wrote that poem several years ago after Matthew Shepard got beaten to death for being gay. But I bring this into today's show because we all have stuff that we're expected to hide, that we're psychic, that we're pagan, that we're gay. There are things we can't hide sometimes, that we're male or we're female, that we're black, that we're white, that we're police officers if you're wearing your uniform. You know, we have so much underlying judgment and hate that gets fed out of ignorance today. And I chose that poem to be our word of wisdom today because it's time that we talked about acceptance and love. Thoughts?
Yeah, lots of thoughts.
Any you'd like to share with me, the audience?
There's a lot of thought when you look into that because of the fact that we are each individual people, and people tend to forget that everybody is here for a purpose, and everybody, if we were all clones of each other, if we were all black, or if we were all white, or if we were all gay, or if we all, all heterosexual, what a dull world this would be.
Then we'd have an excuse to be bored. I think we talked about that last week.
Yeah. Think about your world if it was everything that you wanted it to be. I really give some thought to that. Because if you really give some thought to that, it gives you no concept of learning. It gives you no concept of being able to understand how you really react to things. It gives you no concept of truth. And what is life without truth? What is, so you look at this and you say, why do we always have to fight all these different pieces? Clearly, if I look at a bird, if there's a black bird and there's a brown bird and there's a yellow bird and a red bird, do you see them squabbling and killing each other because they're a different color? They actually help each other at the feeder. What's so hard about this?
Well, and every time I hear somebody being really judgmental and finding things to make somebody else lesser or feel bad about themselves or push them down, I know what I'm seeing is a very insecure person that struggles with self-esteem issues, that struggles with self-worth issues, that is a frightened child that has been led to believe that they do not have value, that there is something wrong with them, and that the only way that they can stay hidden and hide those fears of what people would think about them if they really found out who they were, if they really, if they were brought up under the light of judgment, how they would fail their own standards sometimes. But it's that scared little child. And you know what? The greatest, and I've said this before, but the greatest negative impact on children's self-worth and self-esteem on a consistent basis is media, is all of the false images they're given, of all of the repetitive things that they hear on TVs and radios and movies that somehow make them feel like they're not good enough, they're not pretty enough, they're not strong enough, they're not tall enough, they're too thin, they're too fat, they're too something, they're not enough of this. We have allowed our culture, our children, for decades now to be abused by the media through commercials, not just the TV shows, not just the movies, but through commercials, which are going to force you to think you have to buy something you don't need because you cannot have a happy life without it.
Media and public awareness. It does. I'm trying to bring all of that into my mind, and if you really look at the media, examples are girls who start getting upset with other girls, primarily because they're very jealous of something that this one might have or that one might not have, and or laughing at them because they don't have the greatest Nikes in the world. Those types of, it's not just the skin color, it's not just the whatever moral, ethical piece that you want to look at. It goes as far as skin deep of who's pretty, who has this, who doesn't have that. In media, they make you very angered if somebody is in a certain category versus another category. So it's complex. It's not.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just that, moral, ethical value. It's more of everything, and anything. And you look at girls that are absolutely beautiful, and they look at covers, and of course, people go on to get themselves taking a picture shot, or they're actually being there. They have, their faces are totally made up. They have their own artist for their faces. And these girls will sit there and say, well, that one never has a blemish, and I always have them. I'm going to hide myself. Why?
Yep.
They're beautiful. Yeah, everybody has blemishes. And I really have to admire those, and generally it's usually the singing industry, who step forward and actually show to the public and to these girls, hey, look, I'm not perfect. Because those are the true winners in this society. The ones that can actually come out and be truthful, be honest, and show that they can be accepted as they are.
Yeah, well, it's a combination of you're not good enough on your own, so you must have these accessories. You must have this stuff.
Yeah.
There's things that you need that are going to make you popular because you can't be popular on your own, or make you loved because you can't be loved on your own. And it is this really, truly pathetic set of messages so Madison Avenue can sell stuff.
Yeah.
So money can be made, even though it's at the destruction and the squelching of our youth, and then they take it into adulthood, and then they pass it on to their kids, and it's been going on for a while. But we're going to move on to today's guest. Should we move on to today's guest?
Oh, sure, why not?
Okay. Well, I want to introduce today's guest. If you were here last week, you know that we've been on for about six weeks now, 6-7 weeks, depending on exactly when this releases. And one of the things that we wanted to do was we wanted to share a little bit with you about who were Dr. Kevin and Angie d'Anjou. Who were they? Who were these people? So last week you got to learn a little bit more about me, Dr. Kevin. And now, today, our one and only hostess with the mostest, Angie, is our guest. Angie, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you evolve into this powerhouse goddess woman that you
goddess
are?
woman. Well, actually, I guess I'll start with some of the details of my childhood, but not really that. My childhood, actually, I always had the abilities to feel and sense spirit. I was more of the empath. I was the more of understanding feelings. I was also the type that at a very early age, I would feel the need to be concerned with how people acted. For instance, I was brought up Catholic. I can recall myself as a 5-year-old going into the church, and at that time the ladies had to wear their hats. It was always proper to wear your hat. And I don't think I was probably much younger than that, actually, when I was denouncing hats, because I just felt that it was so hypocritical for the people to be coming into this place of worship and they got their hats on, and that's all they're really concerned about is who's got the greatest hat. And it's funny that you're talking about this hidden stuff, because that's exactly where I'm going to start. And I could feel the intent of this place of worship, but it was getting dissolved around me. Because I was like, well, I'm under the impression I'm here to be here to give thanks, to have gratefulness, be with my divine. And all around me, all I hear is chitter chatter about who has the best hat today. And a lot of people, and of course I didn't go up to them and say, you shouldn't be wearing that hat. I was too young, and I was the quiet one.
Yep.
But at the same time, it really did. It was really inside of myself going, well, and I would question that. I would question that with my mother. Why is it? And she says, well, because they have to wear them because it's the rule that you wear them. And it was always that rule thing. So, okay, so why do I feel like this? And she's like, oh, stop, don't let yourself worry about those types of things. Just let them go.
Yeah.
And of course, through my life as I got older, I would start to see bullying. I would start to see a lot of bullying to myself, but also to others that surrounded me. And when I got to a point where I understood that the bullying was being processed through either their jealousy or their lack of having the comforts that they had at their own homes, then I started to turn that whole picture around. And instead of getting aggravated at the bully, it would be almost like having a little bit of a reading session where, it's like, okay, so, I feel there's something going on here. Let's talk about it.
Okay, so you as a young child, you're telling me, was a bully therapist.
Yeah.
So I see that you have this need to bully people. I think we need to sit down and talk about what is 6, 7, 8 years old? What year?
8 or 9.
8 or 9.
That's when I started that little technique. And it was kind of one of those things where I'd bring out something that was being brought to my attention about that person, which would catch them off guard. And then they would actually start to realize, well, yeah, I do have this issue, and, I don't know what to do with it. One I remember very distinctly, and I'm actually going to share it. It was really kind of a unique piece that always stuck with me. We had to change into a new school district because they changed the districts. And I ended up going with probably about a handful of my friends to the new school district. And this new school district that we went to was very, it was not in a desirable neighborhood. And it was one of those areas where everybody was always ready to hit the first punch. You always had to be aware. You always had to watch out for yourself. That type of a situation, which we weren't really used to, but we understood that existed.
Okay.
And we had we called them patrols. The kids would all go home together in the patrol. We all like little ducks, like the partridge.
Come on, get happy.
We'd take our little walk, and everybody would go and disperse when they got to their home, and there'd be always an older student who was in control of making sure all the younger ones got home right. And there was this one fellow in that group who always caused the issues for those that were in the group. He was the one that would, give them the pull in the hair, or tease them, or spit at them, or, give them some insulting suggestions. And the thing was, is everybody was afraid of him because he carried a knife.
Ah. Now we get to the point, so to speak.
Yeah. And, finally it came to a point, again, we're going to talk about the point, where I started, again, I had that, okay, I got to say this to him. I hear that your brother was in the services, and then when he got out, he got into some trouble. I says, and I'm feeling that you're really upset with that. And he goes, who told you that? And he got really feisty. And I said, people would appreciate you more, and you'd make more friends, and you could talk about these things if you weren't such a, bullying with them and stuff. And what ended up happening is he got rid of the knife.
Yeah.
And he started to actually converse with some of the students on his own.
Yep.
And it was like between the time we came into that space and by the time the school year was ended, we saw him actually do a total turnaround where he was actually helping anybody that was being bugged by anybody. He'd sit there and he'd be the big brother or whatever you want to call it. So, but that was really an earth-shattering one for me, because that one really hit me, because it was like, oh my goodness, this person who was so afraid because he had seen his brother have a bad reaction for being good, because he had gone in the service, done his good duties, and then came back and had some people that really put him down. And of course, you have to remember this was the Vietnam War time. So when you came back from Vietnam, people were very, you weren't a soldier then. You were a piece of crap. So
Yeah.
that was one of the things that really woke me up and said, well, geez, these things that are coming to me, it's not bad because it's helping to change these attitudes.
I'm curious. Do you know whatever happened to that young man? Did you finish high school with him?
I did not finish high school with him because after I was complete with that year, they let us go back into our school that came from. It's almost as though, and that's why I remember it so well, is as though I was put into that situation as much as because we despised the idea that we were going to be going to that school. But going to that school, there were so many interactions that year that changed some of the moral, ethical values or the way people looked at things, that it's feeling like we were placed there for that purpose, and then the coming year that we, boom, out, we're done.
You know, and I think
And I didn't get to see what went on with him, but I'm sure that he transpired because he was helping people.
You know, and you're making a very valuable point here that I want to just bring out to our viewers for a moment, and then let you continue with your story. Mm-hmm. But oftentimes we go into a situation and we go into it kicking and screaming. And when we do that, we can extend the time that we're there, and until we figure out why we're there. Mm-hmm. And if we don't figure out why we're there and we kick and scream enough, we get out of it, and then we'll be in another variation of it because we were there for a reason. Mm-hmm. And not that you as a child said, okay, why am I here? But us as adults, when we end up somewhere and we go, why am I here? If we could change that to, why am I here? Why am I here? Why did I get transferred to this department? Or why did I need to move to this city to find a job? Or why did I need to do this? But say it in I really want to know. I want to learn. I want to grow. Because, you were there for 1 year, created transformational change, and shifted a bunch of stuff, and then you got to go back where you belong. Mm-hmm. And in hindsight, you can see that. Yeah. But if people went in and more willingly said, I'm here for a reason, let's figure it out, and then either where here is becomes livable, even desirable, or you pass through because you did what you came to do. Mm-hmm. And that sounds like that's what you did. Now,
but I also feel that that's the version of my life.
That you go in, you change things up,
and something else comes to start another piece, and it's been a repetition. And we have to go with the flow. But I will say that I did close myself down because of the fact that there were a lot of people, especially when I got closer to my teens, that were very, it was like, oh, you can't be saying that, or you can't be seeing that, or you can't be, acknowledging these feelings. And so, honestly, I pretty much allowed myself to back off from allowing anything to come through to me. And then I met a mentor probably when I was 16, 17, who re-enlightened me and said, no, you know what, this is, you're working with it in a good motion, let's keep doing it. And I also, honestly, not to get too in depth, but I did have an aunt who did help me to get back and say, oh, I don't want anything to do with hearing or feeling or seeing or sensing, because I had an aunt at that time who did feel, hear, sense, but she used it in a negative way. A lot of times she put curses on people. She'd get people tripped. There were things that she would do that were very disrespectful to me or to others around us. And I would say, I don't want to ever be like that, so I'm backing off from this, because I saw that bad piece of the juju.
The juju.
And I didn't want to be a part of that bad piece, because I didn't like to see what was transforming with this lady. So I backed off and I closed it down.
So when they said, are you a good witch or a bad witch? She was the bad witch. But instead of becoming the good witch, you decided to be no witch at all.
No witch at all. I'm not a witch, by the way.
If somebody wants to complain because they don't get the movie reference, you need to get a life. Anyways,
So, I proceeded to find a mentor who actually brought me through and started letting me play with some of the tools of metaphysical. I learned at an early age that there's negative and positive, obviously, because I had experienced that prior to getting into my positive. And then I guess what that did to me was when I started to realize that through the guidance of my divine, I could help conquer some of these negative pieces that were around me. I started to work in that fashion. So I started clearing homes. I started to work with people who, one of the things, people who know me very well, and from the time I was probably 18 until this very moment, I will denounce Ouija boards. I will denounce any of these things like voodoo, Ouija boards, because they do not, or they should not exist. And so I'm like the...
well, you know that I want to hop on the Ouija board thing and make it into a conversation, but I don't want to.
We won't go there today.
We won't go there today.
But I'm going to say to people that a Ouija board is not something you give to your 6, 7, 8, or 9-year-old to play with, even if it comes in pink. Because that's their latest thing. They bring them out in pink now.
Oi. Oi. So anyway,
I have been combative of anything that's negative.
Okay, so you said 18, 19. So when did it? I mean, at that point, did you start your spiritual business? When did that come along?
No, I kept it still to myself. I would do spiritual as, I guess you could say, it was there as my tuck shirt. And it's kind of funny because we did interview Dr. Kevin last week, and I was listening to a portion of his piece that made me kind of chuckle, because when I went into corporate world, in order to gain, like going up to the higher ranks as I worked my way into the corporate world, I played just like you did. I started out with food service supervision when I was very young. I was working the mills when I was like 15, counseling. I was jack of all trades, bounce around, the true Gemini, here and there and everywhere. But as I settled in and I realized that I wasn't going to continue my career in food service, I started in an insurance company. And when I did that, I realized that I had to work my way to that point where I wanted to be. So the first door step into there was the filing room. And I'll tell you, it didn't take me long. Now the truth comes out.
Uh-oh.
Here I am with documents that need to be filed in these filing cabinets, because back then we did not have the computers that did all this technology for you. You actually literally put them into the drawers, alphabetized by name.
You're old enough to have used paper? Horrified. Go ahead. I didn't realize you were that old. No, go ahead.
So, so what I would end up doing is I would link in. And you would have like a time period, the faster you could file, the more files you'd get done, that made you look like, well, you're right up there. It was all intuitive. I would just say, okay, I need to go into this drawer, I need these. And all I do is go like this, and they would open, of course, to the file where I needed it. And some of the people that would watch me sometimes would be like, how does she keep doing that?
Yeah.
And like, oh, I don't know, I guess I'm just lucky. And it was those types of things with my intuitiveness that would help me to go next ladder, because I would see an issue and understand how to deal with it before I had to give the answer to that issue. So I constantly went up, and that went on even in my food service times, like, knowing how to handle people through their vibrational energy so that I could get the best work out of them.
Yeah.
So that's what I utilized it for the most part, all through probably a good 14 to maybe 20 years. And then I started to realize, what am I doing? it's time for me to come back on the boat and get out there and start helping some of these people, because what I was starting to see in the corporate world was total depression, not with myself, but more so with those that were surrounding me. And I was like, my goodness, these people don't know what meditation is. These people don't know how to relax. These people feel that they have to do every single thing that they're told to do. It's like, how high can you jump, and that's all you have to do. And it really got me to the point of reflecting on the fact that there's a lot of people out there that are working for these corporations that are on a little stick, and they're like the little puppets that are just jumping around. And in the meantime, they're getting sick, they're getting disease, because they're not giving themselves the appropriate
Care.
time, self-care,
Yeah.
righteousness. And so, yeah, I started to kind of get off that little wagon and started to draw these people in and say, hey, come with me, I'll do some meditation with you. Hey, come with me, let's do some empowerment, come with me. And so I'm a spiritual consultant to people, of bringing them to that next step, that next level of who am I truly, and I don't need to have anybody else judge me but my own divine.
Well, you're...
And it's funny because, as you can see, we follow kind of the same path.
It's a parallel. But, in my world, we would call what you did coming out of the closet. And it's very interesting because, there's such bad energy out there, and it comes from the religious community, it comes from the scientific community, it comes from the community that has a stick in a place we won't say, community, and it's all around psychic intuitive abilities. And so we see that oftentimes people who are lucky, like you were lucky with the file cabinet, are using their psychic ability. People that are really good managers, people that are really good social workers or counselors, are all, there are all these different areas where people are gifted or natural, or you're a natural at it or whatever. No one wants to say you're intuitively gifted.
Right.
And it's making you a better manager. It's making you a better file clerk.
Right.
It's making you a better this. It's making you a better that, because you're allowing yourself to use all of you, to bring all of you online. I think it's funny that I chose the poem Hidden, because you're talking about all the times you came out of the closet.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that for instance, and this, this is still my goal. Since I've had my business going, my goal is to get not only individuals, but also these corporations, also these places that, are trying to evolve, or they're trying to make something more superior than it is. And it's always, you're going to go back to your divine, because that's what's going to bring that out, that justice. So one of the other pieces that I used to work on was, I did input, like keying input data into the computer, okay? It's like, and I was in management of that. My little unit, who was typing away, because that's what you do, you sit there in this cubicle and type away and go through and all. What I did is I vamped into them certain types of music. And through the music that they were listening to, made them get higher production rates. But because I understood that feeling of the presence of the musical and what music does, the sound works to vibrate either us to a bumming feeling or to a vibrant feeling, I would give them, here, listen to this, that's a new tape I got, and they would listen, and the next thing you know, their production rate would go up. Why? Because we utilized another piece of what, oh no, that's taboo. We use the intentions of sound and what it brings to you. All energy.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the things I find very interesting here is, again, we do this parallel, because I did corporate, you did corporate. I still work with corporate. You still work with corporate. We do it from a more spiritual perspective now, but we still have all of the tried and true business skills that we picked up. It's not an either or, it's an and in both.
Yeah.
But, the other thing is, you and I both took stuff that we were intuitively driven to do, that over time, research and science and stuff like that has proven that the right music now is,
Yeah.
it's more of a known that the right music now can either increase or decrease. But you were doing it before that was quote unquote known.
Acceptable or known, yeah.
It's like all my work with all the stuff I said about ADD and ADHD that I was saying in the late 90s, early 2000s, and they said I was crazy. Now they're, every day I
Utilizing
turn
that,
around
yes.
with an article that proves what I said 16 years ago
Yeah.
now has some scientific evidence, So it's very interesting. Have you ever wondered if science is just there to prove us right?
Well, we do walk hand in hand with science.
Science is just another religion.
Yeah, it's just, they have to be there, I think, to keep us balanced, to not let us get off the deep end.
Well, when there's a fight, and I want to ask you this question because I know that there have been times that I've had to be very aware of this, and is, the creative and the intuitive hang out in the same places.
Yeah.
And, do you ever find that being wildly intuitive and wildly creative, that sometimes they do get mixed?
Yeah. But my feeling with this intuitive point, though, we have creativity. Everybody has creativity, but everybody has intuitiveness too. It's just that, and it's funny because we talked about this last week. We really didn't talk about it. I kind of acknowledged it in my mind.
She talked about it in her head, guys.
Yeah.
She didn't include the rest of us with her conversation. She just included it in her mind.
But
Go ahead.
it's like you were saying, you went through a lot of trials and tribulations as a child. You had to be aware of all that was surrounding you. And that's what brought out that intuitiveness that you may not have actually developed had you not been exposed to all that. And I tell people this time and time again. If I ask any given person that has true intuitive abilities or true connection with their divine, 10 to 1, they are going to tell me, oh, I had to be aware of this and this and this as a child, or I had the responsibility of taking care of a mother or a brother or something as a child, or I was abused as a child, will always be in their statement. And my feeling is that when you go through those pieces in your lifetime in the beginning, you're only keeping your intuitive alive. You're born with it, but a lot of us don't have to utilize it because everything's roses for us as a child. Yet, if we have to always be aware of all concepts around us, whether it be because of abuse or whether it be because we have a lot of responsibility as a small child, that keeps that sense awake and alive.
Well, and I've often, I always teach people psychics like a muscle, and the more you work it, the stronger it gets.
Yeah.
And even muscles have their boundaries.
Yeah, everyone has their limits of what,
Limits.
we all do. Some people see, some people feel, some people just know. So we all have our own pace and concept, but it's there for everybody to utilize in one way or another.
When you are raised in environments where your intuitive is strong, it becomes one of your survival skills. If your mind is strong, then quick thinking becomes one of your survival skills. If you're physically strong, you may become a bully. You may become the kid with the knife.
Yeah.
But you do these things. It depends. We all go to where our survival skills, take us to survive.
Yeah.
And so, you developed really good interpersonal communication skills that sat on the foundation of your intuitive.
Yeah. And everybody had their own piece that they brought out. However, a lot of people when they, like, if I see children now, it's actually, I'm very happy right now because I see so many people that are very aware of the fact that, yes, intuitiveness is here. And it is a part of our awareness here on this earth plane as we walk. It's one of those senses that we do have. Because in the past, I had seen people who would have, you know, like, if a child said, I had one lady that said her parents, she went to her parents and told her that they saw the train coming to a crash. Please tell Uncle don't come because he's on the train and he's going to crash, and please tell him not to come. And of course, maybe 2 hours later, the train came, and the parents were like kind of saying, hush your mouth, you shouldn't say things like that about your, you know, uncle or whatever. Sure enough, 2 hours later, the plane crashed. Now, once that crash happened, what they used to do with that kid is they bring it down to like the local church or the local synagogue or wherever they were, you know, in there, and like, you know, get this kid all like blessed and all that, because how would this child know that?
Well, you know, they would exorcise they would exorcise the demon.
So of course, going through that type of a procedure as a child, obviously you're going to say, well, I'm not going to talk about that anymore.
Well,
let me just shut that right down.
Well, and
it's the same with like a lot of guilt. Like, you know, if somebody sits there and says, oh, I just saw something go right around the back of that screen, and they're like, oh, cut it out, you know, you're seeing things, you're making things up. Or I saw a green little guy and he's been following me for 4 days in my room. Cut it out, you know, knock it off, you're exaggerating, you're pretending, but and a lot of times it is reality to that child or that person, and it needs to be explored.
Absolutely. We shut down children's psychic a lot. I actually worked once with this woman that was in her 70s, and when she did something similar about, you know, trying to warn them about something bad that happened, when it happened, the child was blamed. It was the child's fault. If the child had never said it, it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
You know, it's incredible what kind of ignorance, because that child was crippled with their psychic abilities for the majority of their life.
Yes, well, of course, because yeah.
Yeah, like I caused that. I created that problem. So before all the time slips away, I've got a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
I'm playing our viewers now. So you have these tremendous gifts and abilities. You've helped lots of people. You continue to help lots of people. You go to these expos and these fairs, and you do readings, and you offer services, and you clear houses, and, you know, you chase ghosts around graveyards, and, you know, I don't know. Have you ever exorcised a demon?
No, I don't. No.
You won't go there?
No.
You just have to say, 20, hit the floor right now. Anyways, but one of the things that a lot of people know you around here is for, you know, for your events, for your affairs. Angie's known for her affair. I don't think that came out right. Angie's known for her affairs. Dawn, I've been meaning to talk to you.
Yeah, I know.
But your, you know, affairs, events,
expos.
What was the push to make you the metaphysical event queen of
metaphysical event queen?
I like that.
I like that.
But really, I mean, you, in the time that I've known you, and I've known you, I don't even know how long now. I've known you at least a decade.
Yeah.
Longer. You consistently throw more events than anybody I know.
Yeah, but okay, so they morphed though. I morphed my events.
So
when I started out with the events, I had a reason and a purpose behind it.
Okay.
I'm one who has never really looked at my event as, hey, I'm going to get all kinds of like money and, you know, like fame and fortune or anything out of it. I've never looked at the event like that. Because an event that I put on, I watched for a few years as I went to some of the events. And I was kind of mortified because, again, you got to remember, I came from that corporate piece that I was trying to, balance that out. And so I started to realize as soon as somebody gave, let's say somebody that published magazines, or somebody that was a radio station, or some form of, again, media, once they started to realize some of these events, this is like before I started mine, that these events were kind of like, oh, you know what, people like going to these events, so let's make events. And they would make these events, and I was starting to see that the people who were truly developing their intuitive, or truly developed their intuitive, were not being presented at these events because they could not afford the events, because the events were brought up to that next plateau, of course, with the media. So-and-so can afford our event, so they're the greatest palmist in the world, or so-and-so can invent our event, so they're the greatest chiropractor in the world, or,
They were palming something all right.
yeah. So, I would see that, and I would say, there's so many of these people around here that have really beautiful abilities, and they're not able to really get themselves out there and generate the public seeing what this is truly about. So I took the chance, and I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. And I did this big event. That's how I started. I started out with the first big event that I did was in Nashua. And I brought it to a point where, what can I do to do the advertising so they can keep it at a slow lump, everything so that I can bring them in at a certain level. And that's what made me start this whole thing. It was a crusade, I guess, of getting the real, true spiritual people, the real, true intuitives, the real, true spiritual and energy healers, and all of that holistic piece out there so the world could start to nourish with them. And when I did that, I got the response that I was looking for, and that was my reward. People coming into the space, walking around. Anyone in my events, one of my biggest pieces was, if you were going to compete with so-and-so next door to you, you might as well just leave now, because this is like, hey, you know what, you're a sound healer, and hey, you work with, I don't know, let's say you work with past lives and the sound healer, let's find out a way you can work together to create more and bring people more in, open up to the community. And that was my prospect, and so I did it, and I did do it, and I'm proud that I did that, and I was very, satisfied. It's a rewarding of the heart. People would walk in, they would get to experience this. It wasn't that robust feeling of like, come to me, I'll fix you, or come to me, I'll fix you. It was like everybody working together saying, hey, we're here, come and see what we have.
Well, in some ways, I've seen some of the events go, and, we don't have a whole lot of time left, but I mean, a lot of people associate with their events, and I felt it was important that we bring it up, because I go everywhere and people talk about Angie's events. And even if they're not your event, even if you're helping somebody else with an event, they still get called Angie's event. Because you do fundraising and you help other places.
Yes, yeah.
But the people who actually are used to working with you, if you're there, 9 times out of 10, they're thinking that it's your event. I mean, because you've done so many through the years. But, one of the things that happened is, they used to have, in the studio days, in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, they would have a stable of stars. And they may not be the best singers. They might not be the best dancers. They might not have been the best actors. They might not, but the studio put their weight behind them. And, MGM was known for its musicals, and RK was known for its horror films, and, and all of these things. And I really feel like I sometimes feel like I'm having deja vu with some of these big spiritual publishing houses now that have their set of stars, which are not the most impressive mediums or psychics or who knows. They're just well marketed.
Correct.
And then for the real people who are out there that are coming from a strong place of heart and want to really build the spiritual community and the spiritual life. I mean, some of these, some of the stars will bankrupt your event just to walk through the door.
Yeah.
And it's like, but what about the community? Aren't you here to help the community? Is it really all about the
Right.
money? And you know, I backed away from the spiritual community for a while because I felt like there were too many snake oil salesmen in it.
Yeah.
People that just knew the words, that had a better PR agent than had a psychic ability or had a spiritual connection.
Right.
And I'm not saying all of them, but you know who I mean. There's a lot of them out
Oh,
there.
it's out there, yeah, and but the thing is I always, that's my other piece of it, is with the general public, I have always brought people to the caution of, you know, if it doesn't feel right with you, don't use it, don't work with it. Take what you need from the situation, or take what you need from whatever person you connect with, and throw the rest away. Even myself, when I train my classes, I also do classes in intuitive development, I do some in energy healing, I do some in meditative practice. And I come up with a lot of facts, I come up with a lot of different methods, different tools to use. And as I'm doing this with the group, I will say to them, these are the things I'm showing you, these are the things I'm sharing with you, but if it doesn't resonate with you, if it doesn't fit with you, get rid of it. Don't use it. Only use what you need from my experience. Only use what you need from my teaching. Do your homework, work with it, play with it, see how it resonates with you, because that's what really matters. And so the same thing, if you come to somebody, you know, if they're trying to sell you the moon, obviously you got to, I don't even want to go there.
Yeah.
I've had experiences where people have called me and said, okay, so they told me to go around this pole 5 times and buy this crystal that was $1,000. And I'm not kidding, this is serious stuff. And then I had to put my stone underneath my pillow for 5 days, and then I had to take it and put it in my kitchen for the next 5. And I'm like, okay, so what did they charge you? And I'm like, no.
No, just no.
So what I say is, and it's okay to pay money, because yes, you know, a lot of people look at it, well, you're spiritual, so why aren't you doing this for free? And that's not true, because a person that's spiritual is actually giving a service. They're utilizing their time and efforts, bringing in the messages and bringing in the development that that person needs. So like a singer sings for you and they make you feel wonderful, but they get paid.
Yep.
So, you know, that there's a balance to that. But when a person is there saying to you, well, here's the $800 stone, and this is going to fix everything for you, stop. Put it through your mind here and realize that's not a fix-all.
Okay, so we're almost out of time.
Yeah.
So you do have an event coming up. So tell us about that
July
event.
23rd is the next event. It's going to be up at Laconia at the Weirs Beach Community Center, where we're going to have a fun time. The Labyrinth will be out there. We'll have some sound healing. We'll have some psychics. It's always a good time. Door prizes, free general admission. You also have something special to share that's coming up.
Yeah,
People should know about.
I've got a couple of things coming up. I am going to be up at Leaping Lizards in Portland on July 20th, teaching the shielding class, how for people to protect their energy so people don't suck them dry, take advantage of them.
Yeah.
What do you do if you're attractive to energy leeches and psychic vampires? Come take the shielding class at Leaping Lizards in Portland, Maine. I'm teaching my psychic development class, which is, I've been teaching it for over 25 years now, to help people develop their own psychic. And that's also at Leaping Lizards. It's the first and third Wednesday of August and the first and third Wednesday of September. It's a 4-part class. And I'm going to be starting to teach some more of those classes right here in the Nashua area as well. So if people want to find out what upcoming events, where do we send them?
Just, you know, come to my, you can come to Angie at angiedonju.com. I'm actually now at angie@waveoflight.com.
Yeah.
Okay. And just give me a call, 603-321-4818. I do want to end with my piece and say to everybody, you know, I've kept and come back into my intuitive and working with the public as a spiritual consultant, primarily to help increase the level of community awareness of, yes, we can all work together And we don't always have to go by all the rules. We don't always have to go by all the regulations. We have to go by our common sense and our spiritual feeling. So that's where I come from.
And
And
yeah.
anything else to add?
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming. If you think you have a guest or you might be somebody that would be good on the Web of Light show, you can send an email to Dr. Kevin at weboflight.com or Angie at weboflight.com. That's DRKEVIN. And, you know, we started it with about hidden. We talked about coming out of closets. Everybody has a closet somewhere. Everybody has something they think they have to keep hidden. As long as somebody makes you think something has to stay hidden, they have power over you. Don't give your power away. Remember, you have really nothing to hide. And those people that want you to hide something, it's kind of their problem. Let them have it. Namaste.